Welcome to the DJ the Money Coach Expert Interview Series. I'm Nick, and as always, I'm joined by the founder of the 7 Spheres of Money, DJ the Money Coach. Welcome back, DJ. Good to see you.
Absolutely, Nick. How you doing today? I'm back at the home office, but I'll be traveling soon in the next 48 hours, so it's summertime.
Yep, that means travel season. And so who are we talking to today?
Oh man, I'm glad you asked. We have a phenomenal entrepreneur who I have been knowing, I think, for about 14, maybe 13, 14 years. And actually, this phenomenal entrepreneur is a person that I met through Dr. George Frazier. We actually were both participants in one of his major events back in the day. And then we struck a conversation, and we've been friends ever since. But the most important part, this entrepreneur has been a pioneer. She's been blazing the trail for women specifically that look like us. And she's highly successful, highly accomplished. But most importantly, she's a person of high integrity, high morals. And she's just a stalwart in society. So I want to introduce this person. But before I introduce her, if you don't know me, let me tell you who I am. I'm DJ the Money Coach. My story is real relevant to everybody out there today. I came out of college with over $40,000 worth of consumable debt. I had a 525 credit score in addition to student loans. And I got turned down for not one mortgage, but I also got turned down for my first small business loan as well. And once that happened, I decided to read a book. God forbid, after I came out of college, I never wanted to read any more books. But I decided to read this one book. It was called The Road to Wealth. And actually, I read one chapter in the book about credit. And upon reading that chapter, within 12 months, my credit score rose to like 700, 720. But within 24 months, my credit score rose above 800. And that was over 15 years ago. And not only did my credit score maintain itself over the past 15 years, I also became consumer debt free in 2002. On everything that had my name on it, I owned it outright. Never had debt, because there's a saying in the Bible that says, if you owe debt to a man, you are his or her servant. So I decided not to be a servant anymore and make money a servant of mine. And 6 years after that, in 2008, actually, I became financially independent in America. What does that mean? I had a strong 6-figure income, and I had a 7-figure net worth. And I built that on building businesses, real estate, and dividend stocks. And most importantly, what I'm most proud about, Nick, is that I started to go out in my community and I started helping people achieve the same thing. And in the past 20 years, I've worked with over 20,000 people. I've worked with businesses, churches, and schools across the country. I help people become consumer debt free. And I helped hundreds of people become financially independent like myself. And that's what I'm most proud of. And this person here that I'm about to bring on has the same philosophy and the same purpose in life. And that's why, like-minded people attract to each other. So without further ado, I want to introduce my very good friend named Stacia Robinson, the owner of BeneChoice. How are you doing today, Stacia?
I'm doing great. Your energy just jumps off the screen. I'm ready to go. Like, where is he going? Doesn't even matter. He's going somewhere good. I'm in.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's good to see you again. We haven't seen each other since I think it was last October, early November.
Yes.
I was down there working with the Montgomery Regional Airport, and you were also helping them out as well, the power of the network. So if you can, for us, just tell us real quickly a little bit about your backstory, your education, and what got you into the industry that you're in. And I didn't tell people what industry you were in because I couldn't do the service, but I will tell them this. You are a serious entrepreneur who's owned 2 very successful businesses in the past 14 years since I've known you.
Yes, that is correct. Well, the backstory, I'll try to shorten as quickly as possible. I'm actually from Denver, Colorado, and I ended up going to school at Spelman College in Atlanta on a ROTC scholarship. Anybody who knows me is shocked that I was ever any way affiliated with the military, but I did. But to your point about finances, I was able to go to Spelman because I had a scholarship. I would not have been able to go without that. And I did not have any debt when I graduated. I owed them 4 years. I stayed 7. And when I got out of the military, I actually had the opportunity. I actually married someone that was in ROTC with. My husband is a disabled vet actually, and now works for the government. And the financial story actually starts there, because when we got married, he said, we're gonna live off of one income. Now, mind you, I was in my 20s and I didn't actually know what that meant as much as I do now. When I had the chance to get out of the Air Force, I got out because we had lived on one income and we had choices. I got out. He went to work for the federal government, which he still does now. He's the chief engineer out at Gunner Air Force Base. And I bought a franchise of BNI, Business Network International. I was the 9th state to franchise back then in '91. And I just always knew that I wanted to have freedom of time, resources, and be with my family. And so I owned that franchise for nearly almost 25 years.
Wow.
And I had a chance to see it grow. BNI is known around the world in 73 countries, who knows, growing. But it's also where I met George Fraser and had the chance to network in our community, which was important. Met George back in the day, and he had the conference where I think we first met in Cleveland at the Fraser Networking Conference. And that together gave me the exposure that having trusted relationships is a true currency. And it's also a place where you actually grow your other currency, which is your own reputation. And so fast forward, I've always been interested in making sure that people have freedom of their finances so they can get about their own purposes. If you're not, as you mentioned in your opening, a slave to somebody else because you owe them some money, then you can actually do what you need to do and not be afraid that somebody's going to either call the note or any of that. As far as I mentioned, I started BNI back in '91. In 2000, I actually was introduced to someone else who was actually a church member about the employee benefits business. And I became an agent just out of the fact that I was told at that time, and the company that I mostly represent, that I could help people and their employees. I know I like working with business owners, and I have started a benefits agency, the BeneChoice Companies, back in 2005. And I actually ran both businesses, BNI and the BeneChoice Companies, for 15 years together. I actually don't recommend that. That's kind of hard to do, to run a lot of business, 2 businesses a lot. But it was time to sell BNI, and I did. And so it's been 20 years. In January, it was 20 years that I've been with the BeneChoice Companies. And what I do is I help business owners help their employees to be happy, healthy, and wealthy on the job, and to protect essentially payroll and paychecks. And that all goes together with what I like about connecting with you. When you're helping people with their finances and their emotional connection to money, then you can help people be free and go on about their own purpose here to do what they love to do. So that's what I do.
Oh man, that's awesome. You know, I didn't even know you owned both of those companies at the same time we met. I just thought it was after you sold BNI. So look, I learned something new today. You've been holding back on me, Stacia.
Yeah, hey, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Oh man, that's awesome. So that's you said a lot, but here's a couple of things I heard that I never see taught in high school, elementary school, and definitely not college. And right now with college loans being at an all-time high, over $1 trillion that you can't get rid of, you can't file bankruptcy and get rid of. But like you and I know, there are all other alternative ways to get out of student loan through doing, you know, some financial moves that they're never going to teach you. Exactly. So with that said, how important is it for people in general to know the power of networking and building relationships and building a reputation?
It's probably the most fundamental thing that you can do for yourself, which is to learn how to connect with other people. No one lives life by themselves. And if everyone would acknowledge that they want to be successful, but no one gets there by themselves. And when they get to the proverbial top of the mountain, they don't want to be there by themselves. And so learning how to connect and communicate with people, and in the same time as you do that, build your reputation and your visibility with people, visibility helps with your credibility, and credibility builds your profitability. And so when I'm having conversations, what I call executive conversations with people, I many times tell them that depending on what you want to do, be it to get a customer or your next job opportunity, it's going to come from someone who already knows you. And when you let people know what you want to do, and you've already built trust and credibility with them, you will have the opportunity to access their network of people who know what you're able to do. Both of you probably also already have, when you think about it, just very few relationships with people that may go back as far as junior high or high school. But those people that you still stay in touch with and that you trust and know now are people that display the same kind of attributes that we're talking about now. It's really pretty simple. The things that people are looking about when you're looking to build trust are based on, do they do what they say they're going to do? Do they respect me and my time? And essentially, do they return things as simple as communication with me, returning phone calls, email, letters, whatever that is? When people develop those skills, the underlying part is their attitude. They got to respect themselves before they'll respect other people. And then we can go about solving the problems of the world. A lot of the things that we're experiencing now in this world are really the bottom line of people who broke those communication bonds. They didn't respect people. They didn't think about anybody else but themselves. And that carries on all the way into how businesses are built with people who don't have integrity. The people who do and the people who are working, the only thing you have to trade is your value of yourself and your time. And your job, when I always talk to kids or adults, I say, of course, and you say it too when you're teaching, Dale, I ask people, where does money come from? And I wait for the answer. Of course, people think I said the first thing you probably thought of was it grows on trees. No, it doesn't. But I really want them to really get my answer to that. Their answer and the world's answer should be, every dime you get comes from somebody else. And you need to know what your worth is. And if you know it, you've got to give the value for them to part with their money to give it to you. And that extends into no matter how you have your lifestyle cost. What is your lifestyle cost? Well, if your parents are paying for you right now, how much does it cost for your clothes, your food, your housing? Any child that comes up and comes to tell you, and I'm sure you'd be really impressed, Dale, if you're with, and knowing you probably has happened, to come up and tell you that, Dad, I would like to have XYZ, and the way I feel like you could give me the money for that is XYZ. I'm going to save my money, or I'm going to do this work for that, whatever. You're bringing value to the table. You'd be glad to give them the money. Same with somebody who's looking to make six-figure income. Well, for somebody who actually has it, you got to be bringing money to the table to make them some more money, or they're not going to be paying you that kind of money. But a lot of people actually look on the other side of the equation. They just think they're just owed that, or that they deserve that just because they showed up at your front door. And so all of the ways of learning how to meet people and find out what they need, and you showing up with your value, is how life is actually lived for the better. So that's the answer about the networking question. It was a longer answer than you expected.
Oh, I mean, that's perfect, because you know what I find out is, especially with millennials, they have this privileged, I think I'm better to you, I don't have to respect your time mentality. And in essence, they're taking the shortcut to the shortcut, and they're finding, this little temporary success, but they're scorching the earth in the process. And it's funny that you mentioned that, and about the value that you bring to the table, because it took me a while to understand that. I thought, hey, you just have a tremendous amount of intelligence, a tremendous amount of drive, and you have a plan, and you just work the hell out of it, pardon my French. But that's not the way it works for long-term success. And like you said, from the integrity standpoint, we've been on each other, like I said, 13, 14 years. And I think the common ground was that we always had integrity, transparency, and we were going towards the same, pathway. And I couldn't have gotten to the state of Alabama and done the deal with the airport without your unselfish help. I mean, it's like, I don't know anybody down there, and you went out and you helped out the guys, and that made me look better than what I am. And then I just came up and do what I do. Thank goodness that helped. But why don't they teach this in college? That's what I know why, but why don't you tell me why don't they teach this in college?
I would say it needs to actually go back to however you're brought up. Most people, it starts all the way with relationships in general. People aren't taught their own value or the conversation about their relationship with money. One of the best books I've read along the way, and there's the others, of course, that precede that, but I read a book called Your Money or Your Life back in the early 90s. My husband and I read that together, and it goes through the actual understanding of exactly what I'm talking about, and having people really understand the value of their time. So in that book, she gives a very simple example at the very beginning that says, say for instance, you make $25 an hour. She said, you need to know that you actually make $10 an hour after you subtract the value of your clothes that you have to wear to go to that job, the gas to get there, and your lunch and meals while you're there. And it's not a negative to know that you actually make $10 an hour, but what she teaches you, and I think you can teach kids or anybody, wherever you learn at school or otherwise, that what you need to then ask is, if I need to go get some shoes and they cost $60, I need to ask the question, is it worth 6 hours of my time?
Wow.
And if you say yes, go get it. But you probably won't get 10 pairs of black shoes. But what's important about that is we're not necessarily taught what we are of value to ourselves, but also helps give what I call emotional intelligence about money. And all it is an exchange of time and skill. And if you know your time and skill, and then you be clear about what you want, she goes into a lot more detail about what you teach, as an example, about figuring out what your lifestyle costs if you had no debt, if your house was paid for, and all of that. When my husband and I went through that, we actually paid off our house, and it's like, it doesn't really cost that much to have a comfortable lifestyle.
Right.
And really, again, exchanging your time, it really cut down on the fights around our household, because everybody, what she talks about in there is that everybody has something that they'll spend time on, but it's their time. So you can't tell them, you can't go buy that computer or vacate, whatever it is, because I thought it was worth my time. And it helps you have a common conversation. They don't teach that because people don't necessarily have it related to them that way. But if you can help people start to just get a glimpse of, which you do really well, is teaching people to get a glimpse of what it is like not to be in debt. Just that one thing. But to your point, we're taught consumerism, not freedom.
Right.
Mental,
exactly.
or emotional or financial.
Exactly. And I think, I don't think I know, after been doing this for 20 years, it's purpose driven, because if you owe debt and I tell you to do something that you may not want to do as your employer or your business contract or whatever, you are under compulsion to do it because you have this debt over here that if they let you go, you now are drowning, and and it's caused you major problems. But I think the most important thing you said in your answer was you and your husband read the book together.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think that's powerful, because when I sit down with couples, I tell them, hey, you both are two people, and one of you is a spender, one of you is saver. You're never the same at the same time. But I said you can get on the same page by reading the same things, doing the same things, and having the same game plan, just like you do for your employer. And a lot of times it's like I'm speaking a foreign language to them. But when they realize that and they start working towards that goal and they have the value, they start to make the sacrifice investments for the bigger good for everybody. And you start seeing that selfless, investment that starts reaping rewards for themselves. And even with the single person, even just like with Nick just made a major monumental, accomplishment in my estimation that, Nick, I'm not going to steal the thunder. So why don't you jump in here early and tell us what that was and how that went about?
Okay. All right. Well, my major accomplishment was paying off my car and paying it off early at that. So I didn't, what I'm learning now, I didn't learn, 4 years ago. So 4 years ago, I went and financed a brand new car, the same year I got it in 2016, the car was a 2016, so that was something that, one of those, if I knew then what I knew now moments there. So once I hooked up with DJ the Money Coach and the 7 Spheres of Money program, we started chopping away at that debt quicker by paying the principal. And while I was paying more to the principal, I was also contributing to my emergency fund. So fast forward, 10 months later to July, well, it's about to be July 2020. Now I had money saved up. I took off some time that I had left for paying off that car. I was able to take some of that money that I had saved up and just pay off the balance rather than waiting, 4 or 5 more months to pay off the car.
I'll congratulate you. That is huge.
Thank
But
you.
you actually listened to what he said, but it's really powerful, and it extends. The 2 points about this conversation to me that I think are at the bottom of it is relationships to get information have to be built, and learning what your own financial relationship to money is, what your own personal relationship to money is. If you can handle relationships and money, your life, you can be happy, healthy, and wealthy. That's the whole point. You have options, and you can go on about focusing on your purposes and goals in life.
Right, your vocation. I mean, you said it. Most importantly, Stacia, is that the emotional intelligence is really where people suffer the most in their lives.
Yes.
And generally, no matter where you start at, you don't realize that once you get these tenements of success or these principles that are immutable principles, you can pretty much do what your calling is, because that's what the problem is. A lot of people can't find their calling. They may have a talent and they go do something that just makes money, but they're never happy. But if they get that emotional quotient in line, and then they can take, the template that you have put together and follow your blueprint of success. If you're talking right now to some high school students that are seniors in high school, they're about to go on to college, and you're talking to some juniors in college, what would you tell them will be the most important 3 things they should do if they want to become, financially independent in their lives over the next 5 years?
2 things. I would have them take stock of their 10 most important relationships and make sure that they're actually exchanging respect and value of trust. But know who those 10 people are, stay in touch with them, and intentionally connect with them. And then the second thing is identify how they want to live and really have a really strong conversation with themselves to understand the difference between wants and needs. And most importantly, as they identify what those wants and needs are, find out what your lifestyle costs. If you know what your lifestyle costs, if you have no debt, then you can start to value your time more specifically. Then they can start to identify what they want to do. I always, when I'm interviewing people to work with me, I always ask them, what is your ideal work environment? And I ask them to answer that with adjectives that describe, what do you like to do? Where do you like to be? Do you like to be inside, outside, working with young people, old people, computer work, by yourself, in a group, all of that? As you look to describe that, those 10 relationships are the people, when you tell people the kind of environment you want to work in, they're going to know somebody that probably is looking for people who want to do that. That's where the opportunities come from. And so they'll be connecting their network with their net worth, but they also will know what they are looking for the kind of work environment that they want. I actually have to add a little side comment in here though, because I end up also talking a lot with young women, because women have a different conversation in their head about being acculturated to not asking for what they want. And I had to learn that as well. That's natural for guys, but there's a whole nother story about all of that. But the point is learning to know what you want and what you need and what you're willing to, what you bring to the table connects the dots to a powerful life.
Okay. So what were some of the challenges that you had to overcome that were really opportunities in disguise as a Black woman in America, you know, as a person who was pursuing entrepreneurial game? Because I always tell people, Stacia, entrepreneurship is the #1 game on the planet, but it's also the hardest game on the planet.
It is.
But you will never have a better life if you own yourself. So can you talk to us in that regard of what those challenges were specifically as a Black woman? And then also follow up with that, how does that create any friction, or how did you and your husband stay on the same page? Because I see these conundrums right now where Black women are exceeding faster to the C-suite than Black men in my history, but I also see that it's destroying the household because for some reason they misconstrue that they are here and their husband may be there, but they should both be here simultaneously. But you seem to have done that very well in your profession and in your family life.
Well, I have to say, on a personal note, with my husband and I, we tease all the time. My husband's name is Toy, so he lives up to his name. But on a serious note, I prejudged, and so I would say to people about that, being careful not to prejudge and getting to know people. I prejudged him about where he's from and all of that, and the prejudging keeps us from getting to know people, and I think that's what's most important. And I think that really goes to what I said earlier about relationships. We are not taught how to connect with people, and so we have surface relationships. So when I said earlier, go with the 10 people, what is it about that? Why do you trust them? They get you. What does that mean? But are you getting them? And so a lot of times people don't own their own part in a lot of that. And with relationships and all of that, with what I see with a lot of my, some of my friends who didn't make it, we've been married 34 years, been together 36, but they don't respect. And if there were times, you know, when I first got out of it, my husband actually was medically retired before I got out. So there was a period of time where I was making more. That's not the case. It was not always the case. But whatever you probably trust or like in a mate is probably going to have to carry and not be directly connected to always what they make. And so I think you see that very often when you see the disconnects on what people think they want in their lives. Learning how to communicate your own needs and wants, and also respecting the other person's is hard work. I mean, I know you see that all the time. You're doing marriage counseling when you're doing financial counseling in marriage. But without that book, I actually have to say we used to give as wedding presents, your money or your life, because people fight over money more than they do sex, just to be real. But
that's true.
If we can have a common way to converse about that, that helps people as far as now within the Black community, as far as the things that I've learned always to, I have to say it comes back from my parents though. I was very blessed to have strong parents. I have an entrepreneurial background all the way back to my grandparents, farmers and ranchers, and my grandfather had a store and all of that back in the 30s in Arkansas. And so I always wanted to have my own business. And so the other things that come with that is nurturing and strong relationship with people who really gave me the idea that I could do what I needed to. So there was, I think that in of itself I'm not trying to give myself any more credit other than to say I think that attracts the kind of people that help along the way, because I've had a lot of mentors. And I also pay attention to the dynamics. There's still a lot of stuff that we all are probably remembering as this George Floyd stuff comes up about what is not easily, it's not just given to us as far as loans for business and all that other kind of stuff. But I would say that along the way, I was never afraid to ask people for advice and help. We've been having some racial injustice conversations around here, and someone that I have a professional and personal relationship with, a Black female here, said she never actually even went over anybody white's house for dinner. And that kind of struck me. I kind of like, you know what? I realized that I invited myself to the Jewish synagogue. I invite myself to people's house that are different than me.
Right.
So that's really a big point that you're bringing out as far as what people have to do is getting to know yourself as well. But also, I really think there's a direct connect with not having any debt. Debt is a huge thing because it keeps you from a lot of things that you would try if it weren't for that.
Oh man, I agree. I think it just prevents you from being who you're really supposed to be at the end of the day.
Yes.
Because that freedom to know that you don't have to worry about that debt allows you to do what God gave you innately in your mind. And
or not put up with stuff that's not. If you don't put up with stuff, you won't be putting up with stuff because you know you can walk.
Exactly.
But if you have to,
right,
it, starts to chip away at everything that we've talked about, from your integrity, your respect, your trust, your credibility, your finances. You're not looking for a new job because you got to take care of, it just goes on and on and on.
Right. You spoke to something that I put it in a different way. I call it confidence. I said, number one asset you have to have is confidence. And that confidence, like you said, it propels you, and you and I a lot alike. I always, get to know people and always ask them, hey, what are you doing? Where are you going? They're like, man, why are you asking? I'm just curious. And at the end of the day, my curiosity says, hey, if you're doing something I'm interested in, if you're not going to invite me, I'm going to put myself conducively to make it seem like you invited me, and I'm going to come along for the ride.
Well, one of my favorite Dale phrases is like, we're smart people, we can figure it out. That's what that just always sticks with me. We're smart people, we can figure it out. That's what I attribute to you. Like, oh yeah, okay, let's do it. Let's figure it out.
Hey, God gave us a brain to move forward. So when we're doing that right now, you just said something about giving with the unrest. And I think that was very apropos about everything you wrapped up. Here's my thing. Forget about this giving stuff. Why aren't we not going out and forget the smoke screens? Because every corporation is jumping on the board, Johnny on the spot. And they're only doing it because it's an economic advantage. Let's not be fooled by what the left hand is doing while the right hand is doing something else. Right now, I firmly believe that we should be out there asking for equity and ownership, and line up the table with people like Stacia Robinson for BeneChoice. And yes, you want to show this dressing, this dress, window dressing is what I call it. But at the end of the day, forget about hiring an employee. That's great. But how about doing business with Black business owners that are qualified and go out and take what you deserve, not beg for it? Talk to that for me for a second. Because
if I wasn't sitting here, I'd be shouting right now. But
they're getting twisted. And before you answer, I want to make this point. Here's the NBA primary example. Oh, we'll let the Negroes put their name of what they're thinking about on their back. Let's put Black Lives Matter on the back. Let's put I Can't Breathe, and then we'll put it on the floor, but you still ain't getting a damn penny. So while you getting all kumbaya about the feel good, they still not giving you another dime, no ownership, no equity. Instead of you saying, like Kyrie Irving, forget about us playing basketball right now, because that's not important. How about put some more of us in the owner suite? But they know the little trinkets of making you feel good, you get nothing out of that. So talk to that for me, because I've been talking about this for the last 4 months and people think I'm crazy. Show me some ownership, some equity. Don't show me no window dressings by putting a name on the back and putting a name on the floor when I'm still getting nothing.
Well, I have to go back, quite frankly, to actually what George Fraser has been trying to do for a while, because, you know, they had the Black business experiment to actually find out where we could be spending money with ourselves. There's an element of us realizing that we don't have to always think that the other guy, the white guy's ice is colder.
Right.
And so it starts there. But it goes back to what I think is important. Let's start with who we can do business with and stop looking at what they're doing or anybody else. When you have trust, that goes back to those 10 people, who's your inner network, your inner circle. I think what you say always is we're smart people, let's go figure it out. Identify a list of the types of businesses that we need to fill a slot for. You know, who's our insurance guy, who is our who fixes cars, whatever it is, you know, the services that you need in everyday life. We need to go interview someone that we know, like, and trust for those positions, and then patronize them. I think that would be a grassroots effort for starters, but we don't have any good models of that anywhere right now. And so I would just like to put out that as a answer to that, because it's not going to happen globally in the arts and entertainment world. They're not giving up nothing, to your point. And it's nothing for us to go take from them. We've got to create our own in some respects. But we've got funds. If you're out of debt, where are you investing it? Banks, our own banks, all of that. Of course, there's the risk is being too visible out there for them to come take that too. But in the meantime, we've got enough support of a lawyer. We got everything we need to prosper and move forward.
You know what, I really appreciate you saying it, but you know, here's the reality is that the reason why I'm doing these interview series is that this is our norm. And people still in 2020 think this is an exception to the rule.
No.
So my thing is, let me expose to you what our norm is, because this is all I've been knowing for 20 years.
100%.
Exactly. So my thing is with these millennials is that, you know what? You need to stop. And like you said, that network of 10. And I like the fact that when I met you, I had heard about BNI. I actually was, you know, invited to do the financial education piece in BNI in my area. And I never knew who they were at first. But I was like, man, this is a great concept. Professionals that are high end in one category that they qualify get incorporated into this group. And they actually purposely do business with each other.
Exactly. I seen it work. I just can tell you that, ironically, here I am in Montgomery, Alabama. And for the first 6 to 8 years, I did not have any Black members. Black people would not join. And I keep seeing all this business being passed with them. I mean, they're making each other rich. But that's the point. That's the very heart of it, is to look at, I've seen it work. It works, but we've got to decide we want to work the actual concepts of building trust and relationship. There won't be a whole lot. I mean, quite honestly, that thing that Georgia did with the Black business, what was it called? It was in Chicago where she did that. Anyway, she tried to live a year off of just Black businesses.
Right.
She had a hard time.
Right.
Finding them. But I still would say that the lesson is to start where you can. And let's start with 2. Then 2 becomes 4, you know. 4 become 8, blah, blah, blah. But I think we do need to be a bit more intentional. I really appreciate you doing this, because that's what's missing. Trying to find somebody who you can follow through with, because we've had enough conversations over the years of folks we wouldn't put in our group, right?
Right. Absolutely.
You know, because they show themselves pretty quick. People without integrity actually show their cards in their hands pretty quickly, because that greed just shows up as the green-eyed monster that we know it to be. And check them off the list and move them aside.
That's amazing, Stacia. On July 6th, Nick reached out to organizations looking for entrepreneurs to speak to a youth group, I think at ages 14 to 24. If you were speaking to that group, which I'm going to have the privilege of speaking to what would you tell me to tell them? 14 to 24 is a summer youth program where they get them summer jobs and teach them about getting into the workforce. What would you have me tell them as an entrepreneur?
The same thing that I basically mentioned already in terms of helping them really see. I would have them take pen to paper or the calculators on their phone. How much does it cost to raise you? And then find out where that money comes from. If they're getting it from their parents, that's fine. And then figure out if they're going to get jobs and all that. See, you're going to have them figure out that equation of figuring out how much their time is worth. And say, why would somebody pay you more than whatever the minimum wage is? But minimum wage pay also has a minimum, doesn't require much. You don't have to know much to get that job. And then actually having them really realize, if they start to connect the dots on realizing how much it costs to raise them, it really starts. You know, I'm looking at Nick, as young as you are, when you said you got out of school, you just went and bought a car because that's all you're seeing. Well, where'd the money come from?
Right.
So it was somebody's time. Somebody gave up the time to get the money to pay for whatever you have. And when we can start to help the young kids actually learn that, then you can teach that. So when I taught youth entrepreneurship, my son was 9 at the time, and I showed them how to do their taxes, a tax form. People are like, you showed kids? If I said they could teach a 9-year-old how to do their taxes, because it's just adding and subtracting. How much did you bring in? How much did you spend to get that? Here's how much you keep. And then I said, you can cross your eyes if you like. And I'm actually talking to myself because I am not a detailed person. I had the kids do what a lot of adults do. They say, well, I'll just pay somebody to do my taxes. I said, that's cool. I said, let's see how much they're going to charge you for that. You brought in $200 and you're going to take them a paper bag because you really weren't tracking your money in the first place.
Right.
They're going to charge $60 an hour to sort through it. And they're going to charge you all the money you just made. And all of a sudden they're like, I said, can you add and subtract? They're like, yeah. I was like, why won't you add and subtract your own money then?
Wow.
And so it's really as fundamental as that. I think if you could teach kids to actually look at any money that they bring in, if they get a paycheck, and show them how to do a simple 1040 easy form, you got them for life. They'll start paying attention to their money from then on.
That's profound, because conversely, that athlete has been taught the exact opposite.
Exactly.
Don't worry about that.
Let somebody else
work on toting that football. Work on shooting them hoops. Work on swinging that bat. We'll take care of the rest of the stuff for you. So even though you make millions of dollars, you are financially ignorant, and your money easy come, easy go.
And then when they don't have sports like they probably won't in a lot of these places this fall, they're going to be back living with their mama.
Exactly.
Because they have paid. And I have to give, as much as people like or don't like Oprah, doesn't matter. She always signed the book, the front of the checks. She signed the checks. She did not turn that over.
Exactly.
She'll tell you that. She did not turn that over, and neither did she turn over reading contracts.
Exactly.
And so I might not know the language or whatever, but I will learn what it says, or at least what I need to be paying attention to as it relates to the value of my time. If I'm going to make this money, what is it worth to me to spend it on whatever I'm going to spend it on? And so when you have people make that connect between their time and their resources, kids can learn that. But like I said, you could teach a kid to do a tax form. I think that's probably one of the most important things you could do, because all those people you got to give up your taxes to.
Oh yeah.
And they don't even pay attention. They don't even know. I was like, you need to be paying attention to your money.
They take a pound of flesh. I always say, hey, there's no excuse when you tell me, oh, my financial advisor took my money. Oh, my accountant took my money. What did you read?
or the people who never look at it, and you see this with entrepreneurs all the time, the cash flow problem. They can't go get a loan because they don't have any records. They have
Exactly.
no idea. They didn't set aside their money for taxes. They got a tax bill from 2 or 3 years ago because they didn't, it goes on it. Paying attention to money with those kids at that age. My kids do their own tax forms.
Man, that is awesome. You know, that kind of equates to what I teach my kids. Master the hard things in life early, and life gets easier. Master the easy things in life early, life gets extremely hard the older you get. So you might as well buckle down. And I think the common theme here is that you have a military background. My father had a military background, and I learned that, and things got better as I got older because I mastered things that weren't sexy, they weren't cool, but now they're cool because we have financial independence and freedom. And I always tell people, you can make $8,333 a month and be debt free and live like the millionaire you see on television that really ain't a millionaire. And George said something very profound. He said, the rich, they pretend like they poor, and the poor pretend like they rich. That's why they never get rich.
I like that one. That's true. And that was the one thing I had to say. I fussed with my husband about that. Why can't we have, he said, the only people who impress me is if they're going to come around here and help pay my mortgage or pay, well, the kids were babies, pay for some diapers. Other than that, I don't need to impress anybody.
Exactly.
They can impress me and help me pay for this.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So if a young person wants to go in your profession, what is the template that they should ascribe to, and what is the blueprint they should follow to get in your particular profession doing employee benefits? Because a lot of people don't realize the thing that I like about us finally figuring out how to work together is that that's the most important decision they're going to make as an employee, and they don't realize. You get this packet on Thursday, pretty much is on Friday. The HR person tell you hand it on Wednesday, and you don't want to look like you're stupid and there's no stupid questions. You just bring it back and check the boxes, just mindlessly, and you screw yourself. But you sit down as an advocate, and just like I do, we sit down and we break these things down to these people. And I mean, I've seen people make $300,000-$400,000 at a job and have no idea what they're paying for, what they're getting, and then they wonder why they hose. So explain to us, what is the template and what's the blueprint they should follow if this is their calling, and how beneficial a career like this is, because it's not going anywhere. As long as there are jobs, there's going to be a need for benefit choice.
Benefits, exactly. Well, talking about benefits in general, I would have to say from a marketing point of view, if they feel called to do sales, period, that's one aspect of it. People who do well with that. As far as the finances of it, I was attracted to it from having been in B&I and owning my own business. Most businesses don't have the aspect of, like the insurance business does, of once you actually make the sale, you keep getting paid as long as they keep paying the premiums.
Right.
And that's huge. I mean, insurance people make a lot more money than some doctors, because after they're done doing surgery or whatever, they're done.
Right.
And I kind of caught it even differently. And my husband told my son, I can't will you my job, but your mom can will you her business.
Right.
But the track to doing that is actually getting licensed in my industry for life and health. And some people actually build an agency in property and casualty, getting licensed to do it. And then picking a company and a model to actually just build a business that has all the systems and pillars of business, the finances, the marketing, the leadership, and the people, customer service, and all of that. And do what we've already talked about earlier. Call in people that they help you grow your business. I have a CEO roundtable that I've been a part of actually for 25 years.
Wow.
And they were like my advisors. They are my board of advisors. I'm not like that. They are.
Wow.
So we are non-competing businesses in that as well. And they were, and still are, we still meet once a month. And that's what has been a strong backbone of my business. And I would recommend that to anybody, to actually build you a board of advisors
Okay.
for growing your business. And, you know, needs a refresh every once in a while. I'm reframing and adapting in this environment. We've had to learn how to quickly on the fly do business by telephone during this COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And we did. And it's you know, as long as you're living, you still have bills to pay as far as your lifestyle is concerned.
Right.
This is one that is just helpful to actually have known what our value is and to actually help people with their paycheck and to understand what they do. We educate people about their benefits and to know what they should be looking for. It kind of complements what you do when you're talking about their whole investment strategies.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. Time has gone by fast, and I actually got to wrap. I mean, we're gonna have to do this again. So, what I want to ask you is parting shots or parting nuggets that you can leave with us, because obviously I heard it. It's the 10 people, that book you talked about. You know, Your Money or Your Life. I mean, that's powerful. I'm gonna get that book myself because I've never heard of it, but the compelling principles in it make sense. 110% matter of factly. So what are 3 things you would like to leave with our people? How can we get in touch with you? Give us your contact information slowly, give it to us twice, and then we're gonna have Nick chime in what he got out of it, because we always like to have, and here's what I'm excited about. The last 4 or 5 interviews we've done, Stacia, we've had a representation of 3 generations that look like us. And it dawned on me when we were interviewing George, and I was like, man, what a powerful thing. We got George, me, and Nick. Now we got Stacia, me, and Nick. And the most important thing is your legacy. So talk to that and your parting nuggets you can share with us about legacy and what are some things people should do right now in addition to what we heard over the past 45 minutes.
I would say the first nugget is very broadly, handle your money, handle your finances, handle your relationships, and learn to communicate with people, and be very solid about building your confidence. I like that word very much. So your confidence and enthusiasm about what you're here to do. And with the BeneChoice Companies, we are online at www.BeneChoiceCompanies.com. That's BeneChoiceCompanies.com. BeneChoice Companies. It stands for good choices.
Awesome.
That's the whole point about that. So I just really thrilled to have had the chance with you guys as well. And I can't wait to hear what the heck Nick got out of all this conversation, because you and I could go for another 3 days without anybody else.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. So Nick, what did you get out of this? Because I see you over there doing some copious writing. What did you get out of this, Mr. Educator?
Oh yes, you know I take notes on all of our interviews, and I have let's see, I have 3 pages of notes here. Yeah, so I wrote down my takeaways. I'll say the biggest takeaway would be relationships, learning how to connect with individuals, and not just connect with them, but connect with them beneath the surface, whether it be business or personal relationships. The next thing would be the importance of knowing yourself, knowing who you are, knowing what your value is, knowing what your wants and needs are, and knowing what you want your life to look like. And from the financial perspective, understanding your personal relationship with money and avoiding that debt. And I'm going to get that book as well, Money or Your Life. Made a note of that too. So thank you, Stacia, for your time in this conversation. Got so much from this conversation, and always thank you, Dale, for reiterating those principles.
Oh man, that's awesome. That's awesome. So Stacia, I want to thank you for coming out, taking time out of your very busy and productive day to invest more time with us, as she's a servant leader, if you haven't noticed that. And that's one of the common themes of the people that we've been interviewing, their servanthood leadership. which is what John C. Maxwell talks about. But, you know, we end this the same way all the time. You know, I wish everybody a pom-pom lifestyle. That's plenty of money, peace of mind. And I wish them to come join us on the Beaches of the World Club, because you know what? Corona is not stopping anything if you got your stuff in order. So, you know, I wish you the best. Thank you, Stacia, and everybody out there. Hey, if you like what you heard, subscribe, share, and most importantly, incorporate it into your life, because your life is the most important one that you got. You only got one, so maximize it to the fullest capacity. So I'm DJ the Money Coach, and we'll see you in the next interview. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.